Hi. So, I'm kind of, I feel better now, but the day started out kind of crappy. And I'm wondering if any of you experienced this. Because it happens to me quite a bit. And, and I'm thinking I know why. I, if you've watched my other videos, you may have heard me talk about uh, where I used to work, and that when I left, it was very traumatic. So I'm not going to get into the whole thing. It was just know that I was treated very poorly, and um, it was traumatizing. And anyway, um, so so today I needed to go up to the vet to get my dog's food. I wanted to go to the store, and I had to shovel, get the ice off my car. It was kind of encased and in a cocoon of ice. And so I was out there for like maybe an hour to an hour and a half shoveling, and because it wasn't just snow, it was ice. So it took a long time, a lot of effort, and I was by myself. And so I had nothing in my mind other than this task. And suddenly, well, it kind of not suddenly, I was thinking of, I have a referral to a neurologist, and as I tend to do, I rehash or hash and rehash anytime I'm going to anything medical, or seeing a therapist, or um, any any situation where I feel like I'm going to be judged in any way by what I say. I will rehearse the conversation, and so I am digging and I'm thinking, what am I going to say about myself to this neurologist, because they're going to want to know a lot of things. Um, and I'm always self conscious of, I used to be always self conscious of saying, well, I'm on disability for this bipolar disorder and anxiety. I always feel like a fraud, or they don't believe me, or they aren't going to believe me, or they're going to roll their eyes. And, it's just a very uncomfortable conversation that I don't like to have with people that my care depends on them and how they view me, because they're human. Um, and I've had some bad experiences with doctors, but um, and so, like, I have this fear that I'm going to go to the appointment and my tremor activity, um, which is getting worse, is gonna like suddenly go away that day, and I'm gonna go in and they're going to be like, why are you here? You're fine. I'm dropping stuff and trying to take a drink, and I'm about ready to, I can't, drinking out of a bottle is too hard because they're flimsy in my hand. It's a intention tremor. That means you really only see it when the person is exerting trying to do something like right. Um, but anyway, uh, so I start out what am I, what order of things am I going to tell him, and what is he going to ask me? And I have to remember to, talk about the family that has it, members that have it, and so, I'm kind of rehearsing that. I'm not this part. I'm not upset. I'm just sort of rehearsing, what I'm gonna say, how I'm gonna word it, things like that. And so somehow at some point, I think it was because when you have that first appointment, and they always ask, where do you work? And that's the one that gets me upset. And I'm like, well, he's going to ask where I work, and I guess I can just say, well, I was an RN for a while, and then didn't work for a while because of that bipolar disorder, and I got better, so I was working again, and now I'm not. I guess I can lie, not lie, but say because my symptoms changed, and you know, I don't want to go into um, the whole scenario of what happened, and so I just have to say, well, I worked at a animal shelter for several years, but I don't now. Now I train dogs and sell stuff on Etsy, but so it went from there. And now, mind you, what I'm doing is this shoveling, which in de-icing, which involves just repetitive, mindless, repetitive activity, which was allowing my brain to um, sort of have things coming to the surface that I thought I was over. And I mean, the thoughts about just saying I used to work at the animal shelter and now I don't brought up why I'm not there anymore, and the whole harassment that I endured, and everything that went down, and pretty much has caused me to have uh, symptoms of PTSD, and how disgustingly I was treated. And so I started going over those events in my head, which are still very upsetting. And I'm shoveling, and somehow I thought, if I ever moved from this town, I was going to, if I ran into people, like the vet, that she's the vet for the shelter, but she's my dog's vet, and we're friends, basically, kind of on a friend level. And when that all happened, she told me, I'm not going to say anything because those people are my clients, but I'm just telling you that me and you, we're good. So, but I thought, if I ever moved from this town, I would make a point of talking to her and telling her exactly what really went down. And so then my brain goes to, what would I say to her in that conversation? How would I say it? What words would I use? So I'm reliving the trauma, shoveling snow and chipping at ice, and I thought, well, at least I'm doing something physical while I'm have this in my brain. I don't want it's not something I wanted to think about or expected that I would be thinking about it that day today. It just surfaced, um and I was near tears because of how shitty what they did to me was. Um, and I started to get extremely anxious, and had that unsafe feeling. Um, you know, almost like, and I felt like I was trapped just thinking, you know, I was reliving emotions that I went through because this wasn't like a singular event. It was over a period of a week and a half, 2 weeks, and I went to work and did my job professionally while people were treating me and doing things that were just disgusting. Um, and as human beings, so I am at this point shoveling and stuff, and I'm reliving trauma. And I'm wondering, why now? I was fine when I walked out here with this shovel and de-icer. Why did my okay normal mood suddenly plummet? And I realized, we've had some bad weather, and I have not been going for walks. I can't go to the gym uh, to walk on their track, and that's usually where I would do my all that extra clutter in your head and just sort of process through it and let it out in your head. Excuse me. And so I hadn't been able to do that. It has to involve a physical activity that is kind of a mindless activity for my brain to process stuff. I and I realized that for ever since it happened, basically, which was the end of June, I think, um, I have my coping mechanism has been to um, pack. At first, I had, you know, um, every hour, half hour accounted for so that I followed this schedule very strictly so I could, because I was so distracted from what happened, and I could just follow this and be okay, um, and know that I didn't have any free time. I delved into projects that were mind consuming, um, getting everything prepared for the dog training. I had no idea how much business I would have, but I got t-shirts and cards and Facebook page, and I delved into that, like every waking minute. Um, and then the brooms and the wands came, um, and every free minute was making those. Um, I I did TikToks. The YouTube is not as like a filler for me. It is more important. than just a filler. TikToks, I was trying to get a message across, but it just wasn't working on that platform. And also, I was having a lot of trouble with my hands. You only have 60 seconds, and the things I was doing involved moving pieces of paper, and I just, it was too stressful. But my point is, I have been packing every waking minute with something that will completely not just distract, but allow me to act like nothing bad happened. Don't let the bad stuff in, kind of thing, like a protection. And then I had a moment where my mind was free. And I was starting to get used to being a little more relaxed in my daytime. And I think it must have just been okay. My brain's like saying, I've been trying to get you to, but but it made me feel awful. It made me feel the same emotions that I did then. I'm like, well, why would my brain just bring up something horrible that I need to um, be moving on from? Well, why would my own brain subject me to those emotions and thoughts? Wouldn't I want to be working away from that? But I guess that there is a certain amount of going through the rehashing um, as a way of getting it to the point where it's not as important, not as much of a bother. So I guess it tells me that I'm still very much in the trauma, and so I'm wondering if any of you experience this type of thing where you're doing some mindless, benign activity, and then uncomfortable, unhappy, um, sad, or angry kind of things just pop in your head like, how did that get out into my forethought? Why? Uh, why did my brain think I needed to talk about this or think about this? Or maybe it's that I need someone to talk to about. And so the deal is, unfortunately, um, there aren't any therapists in my area, and I did BetterHelp, and I had a good experience with it, but I've learned some shady things about it. So, um, but I needed the money. I couldn't use it anymore because I needed that money to pay for my dog's surgery. So, and I don't really want to, or I can't really rehash it with my mom. I need a stranger. so I can sit down and say, this is what happened to me. And get some validation that, yeah, that was really shitty. um, and where, and I guess it also says that I really don't know where to go after that. What direction is my life taking? Because for so many years, I have been a certain person, and I'm not that person anymore. I'm different because of my job duty, my change in situations. So now I don't even know who I am. Or I don't have a very confident feeling about where I'm at. I do recognize that I need more validation, I think, than and and acceptance than a lot of people do. I'm very doubtful if something I said was the right thing or something I did was not that bad. um, I mean, most of us need some of that to some degree. But I think I'm a little lost about who I am right now on a sort of existential level, because I'm not the nurse, I'm not the animal shelter manager, and I have to figure out how to take pride in the person I am now, because I I'm figuring out that I have always been in labeled sort of labeled or put myself in, like, identified with the work I was doing as my validation. What responses I would get from people while I was being that person were positive. So what I'm saying is, in high school, let's say, well, I mean, even as a child, let's say the most common thing I hear is, she's so quiet. So I was always teacher's pet. I was quiet and behaved myself, but I also was socially isolated and terrified with anxiety. And in nursing school, I was the nursing student in my family. That was my identity. Like in high school, I was the brain, so I was in a category. I had a label, and that's what I took that on as all that I was, rather than a person who was this, who was already a person, but also part of that is this person that gets good grades and is in AP classes. And then I went to nursing school and saw how much it pleased family, So I was the nursing student, and then I was the nurse. And those labels were, I took those labels to mean that was all that defined me, and denying that there was more to me than these labels. And so then I went to crazy person label, which was just a horrible, horrible years of uncontrolled mood shifts because I couldn't take the usual medications, but I got better and I went from, um, I, for a while, I was a disabled person. Um, and then I took that on. And then I worked at the animal shelter. And I was worked up to the manager. Um, and that's who my identity was, like 24/7. Because I was basically on call 24/7. But I mean, when I have a label, that's who I am all the time. I don't think I have a grasp on who am I as a person rather than what I'm doing or a category I'm in. And so I feel like right now I feel like I'm sort of like I don't have an anchor anywhere and I don't know who I am. Uh, oh, I'm searching for something to give me a label and identity because I don't feel like I have any without it. And a lot of times that requires approval and validation from other people to know what direction to go in. And with, and I think that is why it really bothered me that much. If it had just been a job, like I was just a person that had a job, I could easily have moved on. But instead, they did not attack my job. They attacked me because I was my job. And now I have, and therefore have, am nothing because I have nothing to define me. Except maybe a little bit on the dog trainer side. Um, I did get, I was pleased and given some validation, and that I was working with this family that had a dog that would attack them whenever they tried to leave the house. And it wasn't a separation anxiety situation. It was basically a very confident, smart, bossy dog that was holding the family hostage. So, and I actually made got got things together and I figured it out, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And that was the main reason. I mean, she could sit, but the main reason was to not be attacked. They had gone as far as buying a special crate to put her in, and then they could go in the car and it had a remote, and then they could remotely let her out of the crate while they were in the safety of their car. So that was one of the main things that we needed her to make progress on, and I figured out a way to take care of that. And when I heard that it was working, that um, that gave me a little bit of sense of, okay, you know, I'm qualified to train dogs. I have trained dogs. I just hadn't done it on my own. I had done it through the shelter, and it gave me a little validation in that realm to say, well, I'm a dog trainer. Um, I just don't like feeling afloat. You know, like some people can just like, I'm gonna do today whatever I feel. You know, that free spirit kind of. I'm just not like that. I require a something defining for me. So I don't know what I'm gonna do about if I ever retire or anything. Um, the brooms and the wands. Um, I have sold some brooms. Um, I haven't put wands up by themselves yet. I'm gonna do that today and see how that goes. Um, but I have to keep checking with my mom. Does this look okay enough to put on Etsy to sell? Because I can't seem to do that on my own. Um, and like I said, it's normal for people to seek opinions and validation, and you know, that thing where you're like, okay, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't crazy or anything. That thing. So but to me, it seems like I need that a little bit more, an inordinate amount of, I don't know. Anyway, so back to the thing is, back to my original point was that, have you ever been doing something that was sort of mind numbing, like the dishes or something, and things are just sort of floating around in your head, and then you just pop into something that's disturbing or made you feel awful, and you get to relive it suddenly in your head? I know that some of the symptoms that in regards to this are post traumatic stress. Um, the if someone related to the shelter is in a store that I'm in, you know, like a chance occurrence, you know, I immediately get that anxious, unsafe. I don't know how else to describe it, but I feel unsafe and nervous, and like I'm in danger. It's very unpleasant. I've trained Finnegan a little more solidly on block, which they use for PTSD to keep a distance. They come in front of you, stand in front of you to keep people, to protect you, give you a feeling of protection and so that people can't come over or get closer. I don't drive by the shelter. I go purposely way out of my way to go around it so I don't have to see it, because I get the same um, very distressing sensation. Um, so, I was just wondering if it was something that was more common than I think, where you're just minding your own business, doing some boring thing, and then your brain just pops up with this traumatic, upsetting part of your life. And you're like, hey, I was innocently shoveling snow. Why is this popping into my head? So, anyway, this was more of a. Well, I wanted to know if anyone else has this problem and how common it is. Um, and also because I just needed someone to talk to about it. Um, I, because people in my life, except for my mom, don't really understand what happened and what this board member did and why that is part of the issue I have with the trauma. I don't think they know what really happened because it was just me and this other person in the room. So, anyway, let me know if this is something that happens to you and how do you deal with it. Because I'm thinking I need some advice on this. Because it kind of ruined my day. It could have been a good day, and it wasn't. So, I was so. I had that distressed, unsafe feeling, so anxiety so bad. I was shaking and I had to take Xanax because my brain was just a hot mess. So, alright, just let me know in the comments if you want to. And I'm gonna start sounding like a YouTuber and say, if you like this video, please give it a like, thumbs up, and subscribe.